What do you do when the life you were born into and the life you were meant to live have nothing to do with each other? Moses was born a slave and raised a prince. He ate at the table of the most powerful man on earth while his own people were worked to death in the fields outside. 2 names, 2 languages, 2 worlds. He never fully belonged to either. God chose him anyway. Not despite that. Because of it. This is not a story about a man who had it together. Moses argued with God, lost his temper, doubted himself, and made a single mistake that cost him the one thing he had spent his life moving toward. He needed 80 years just to become the person the job required. 80 years. Then one conversation at a burning bush in the middle of nowhere changed everything. To understand Moses, you have to understand Egypt. The Pharaoh was not merely a king, he was a god. A living deity who held millions of lives in his hands and answered to no one. Inside that empire, building his cities brick by brick, were the descendants of Abraham, the Hebrews. They had come to Egypt during a famine generations back, welcomed by a pharaoh who remembered what a Hebrew named Joseph had done for the country. That pharaoh was long dead. The new one looked at the growing Hebrew population and felt what powerful men have always felt when they encounter people they cannot fully control. Fear. He made them slaves. Bricks without straw, cities rising out of the desert under the hands of people who had no choice and no recourse. Still, the Hebrews grew. So the Pharaoh did something governments should never do. Every Hebrew boy born from now on was to be thrown into the Nile. A woman from the tribe of Levi gave birth to a son. She hid him for 3 months. When she could no longer hide him, she made a basket from papyrus reeds, waterproofed it, placed her son inside, and set it among the reeds at the edge of the Nile. The river that was supposed to be his grave became the thing that carried him. Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe. She saw the basket. She opened it, and the baby was crying. She felt sorry for him. She knew exactly what she was looking at, one of the Hebrew babies, and she took him anyway. The boy who should have died in the Nile ended up living in the palace of the man who had ordered his death. She named him Moses. I drew him out of the water. Moses grew up Egyptian in every visible way. The language, the education, the clothes, the access. But he knew. And one day he went out to where his people were and watched them work. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. He looked around. Nobody watching. He killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day the truth was already out. When Pharaoh heard, he tried to kill him. Moses ran. He ended up in Midian, dry, remote, far from everything he had known. He married a woman named Zipporah, had a son, and became a shepherd for his father-in-law Jethro. The man who had grown up in the most sophisticated civilization on earth spent the next 4 decades watching sheep on a hillside, 40 years. Prince, fugitive, shepherd. By the time God spoke to him, Moses was 80 years old. But those 40 years were not wasted, even if they looked like it. The desert Moses learned as a shepherd was the same desert he would lead 1 million people through. The patience he built watching animals was the patience he would need watching a nation that behaved worse than animals. The humility of going from prince to nobodies was the only preparation that actually worked for what was coming. God wastes nothing. Not 1 year. One day Moses was out with the flock near Horeb, and he saw something strange. A bush on fire. Not burning up, just burning. He went closer, and God called to him from inside the bush. Moses, Moses, here I am. Take off your sandals. You are standing on holy ground. God told him he had seen what was happening to his people in Egypt. He had heard them. He was sending Moses to Pharaoh to bring them out. Moses answered immediately, "Who am I to go to Pharaoh?" God did not give him reasons. No list of qualifications. Just, "I will be with you." Moses pushed back. "What do I tell them your name is?" "I am who I am." "Tell them I am sent you." Moses pushed back again. "What if they don't believe me?" God gave him 3 signs: a staff that became a snake, a hand that turned leprous and then healed, water from the Nile that would turn to blood. Moses pushed back a 3rd time. "I am not a good speaker. I never have been." God answered, Who made your mouth? Go, I will teach you what to say. Moses pushed back a fourth time. Please, send someone else. God's anger burned. Still, he did not take back the calling. He offered Moses his brother Aaron as a mouthpiece. Moses could be the voice behind the voice. 5 times Moses tried to get out of it. 5 times God held firm. Moses went. The confrontation with Pharaoh was not one dramatic moment. It was a grinding, ugly, escalating war. Let my people go. Who is the Lord that I should listen to him? I don't know the Lord, and I won't let Israel go. Pharaoh made things worse. He stopped providing straw for bricks but kept the quotas identical. Impossible. The Hebrew foremen were beaten for falling short. And the people turned on Moses. You've made us a stench to Pharaoh. You've put a sword in their hands to kill us. Moses had come to free his people and made their lives worse. He went back to God with the only question he had left. Lord, why did you send me? Nothing has gotten better, and you have not rescued anyone. God's answer was short. Now you will see what I do. 10 plagues followed. Each one targeted a specific Egyptian god. Each one a systematic dismantling of everything Egypt trusted in. The Nile turned to blood. Frogs, gnats, flies. Disease on livestock. Boils. Hail that destroyed crops. Locusts. 3 days of solid darkness, a direct strike against Ra, the sun god, the deity Pharaoh himself claimed to be. After every plague, Pharaoh relented, then hardened the moment the pressure was gone. 10 times, the man who kept refusing became the refusal. The hardening became who he was. The 10th plague was the one that broke Egypt. Every firstborn son would die. Pharaoh's, the prisoners, everyone's. But there was a way through. Each Hebrew family was to take a lamb, slaughter it at twilight, and put its blood on the door frames of the house. When God passed through and saw the blood, he would pass over. At midnight, it happened exactly as promised. Not one house in Egypt was untouched. Pharaoh got up in the night and summoned Moses. Get out, all of you. Take everything. Go. 430 years after the first Hebrew arrived in Egypt, his descendants walked out. Pharaoh changed his mind. Of course he did. 600 of his best chariots. His army. Chasing them down. The Hebrews saw the dust cloud behind them and the sea in front and turned on Moses with everything they had. Were there no graves in Egypt? Did you bring us out here to die? It would have been better to be slaves than to die in this desert. Army behind them. Sea ahead. Nothing on either side. Moses said something that people have been repeating ever since. Do not be afraid. Stand still. The Lord will fight for you. You only need to be quiet. He raised his staff. God drove the sea back with a strong east wind through the night. The Hebrews walked across on dry ground, waters standing like walls on both sides. The Egyptians followed them in. When the Hebrews reached the other side, Moses stretched out his hand and the water came back. All of it. Every chariot, every horse, every soldier. Gone. Miriam, the sister who had stood at a distance watching a basket float on the Nile 80 years before, grabbed a tambourine and led all the women in dancing. The celebration lasted 3 days. Then the water ran out and the people complained. A month in, they were hungry. They complained. No water at the next camp. They quarreled. It never really changed. The pattern ran for 40 years. Crisis. Complaint. Moses crying out to God. God providing. Brief relief. Next crisis. Every morning manna appeared on the ground. Thin, sweet, enough for one day. If anyone tried to save extra, it rotted overnight. The provision was daily by design. A people who can stockpile 6 months of food don't need to trust God in the morning. God was teaching them something Egypt had never required them to learn. You need me. Not once. Every day. At Sinai, God called Moses up the mountain. Moses walked into the cloud and fire and stayed 40 days. He came back with the law, the 10 commandments carved in stone by God's own hand. While he was gone, the people got impatient. They went to Aaron. Make us something to worship. This Moses, We have no idea what happened to him. Aaron melted down their gold. He made a calf. The people said, "These are the gods that brought us out of Egypt." Moses came down the mountain with the tablets and heard the noise before he saw what was happening. When he saw the calf and the dancing, he threw the tablets down and smashed them at the foot of the mountain. Then he went back up and said to God, "What they did is a great sin. Forgive them, and if you won't, take my name out of your book. Erase me instead. Erase me instead." Moses was willing to be destroyed for the people who had just destroyed what God gave him. That is what real intercession looks like. Not praying for people because they deserve it. Standing between them and what they deserve. Absorbing it yourself. God forgave. Moses came down a second time with a second set of tablets. His face was so bright from the presence of God that the people were afraid to come near him. He had to cover his face just to talk to them. Years passed, and then one moment undid everything. No water again. The people quarreling again. God told Moses to speak to the rock and water would come out. Moses gathered the crowd. He said, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring water out of this rock for you?" And he struck the rock. Twice, water came out. The people drank. But God said to Moses, "Because you did not trust me enough, because you did not treat me as holy in front of these people, you will not bring them into the land I am giving them." One moment. One word. Speak, not strike. And the thing Moses had been walking toward for 40 years was taken from him. He did not argue. He accepted it. He kept leading people toward a place he knew he would never enter. That is not failure. That is something harder than success. At the end, Moses climbed Mount Nebo, 120 years old. The Bible notes his eyes were still sharp and his strength had not left him, but his time had come. God showed him the land, all of it, spread out in the light. "This is what I promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You can see it. You will not go in." Moses died there on the mountain. God buried him. Nobody knows where the grave is to this day. The Bible ends his story with a line unlike any other. No prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. Face to face. Not through visions. Not through angels or intermediaries. The way you know someone after years of hard conversation. Someone who has argued with you, failed you, come back and been changed every time they got close. Face to face. 4 things stay with me from this story. The first, the wilderness is not where you wait for your life to begin. It is where your life is being made. Moses spent 40 years in Egypt and 40 years in the desert before God gave him the work. We want the Red Sea moment without becoming the person who can lead 1 million people through it. God used every year, the palace years, the shepherd years, the humiliation, the patience, all of it. None of it was filler. The second, God picks people nobody else would pick. Moses was a murderer, a fugitive, a man who stammered and argued with God 5 times at a burning bush before he agreed to go. Scriptures calls him the most humble man on the face of the earth. And the man God knew face to face. Those 2 things go together. The people most certain of their own qualifications rarely find out what God can do through someone who knows they have none. The third, real intercession costs you something. When the people built the golden calf, Moses did not stand back and let them face what they deserved. He put himself in the way. Erase me if you won't forgive them. That is the posture of a leader. Not above the people in judgment, between the people and the consequence. Moses was pointing towards someone greater than himself, the one who would not just offer to be erased but actually was. On a cross. For the same people who build golden calves when they get scared and impatient. The fourth is the hard one. Faithfulness does not always end with arrival. Moses never entered the promised land. He gave 40 years to a journey he did not finish. He saw it from a mountain and died before he crossed the line. By every ordinary standard, that is an incomplete life. But 15 centuries later, Moses appeared on another mountain, the Mount of Transfiguration. Standing next to Jesus, the one Moses' entire life had been pointing toward without Moses knowing it. The deliverer who would do what Moses began, who would lead not one nation but every nation out of a bondage deeper than Egypt. Moses arrived, just not the way he expected. There is something in that for everyone who has poured themselves into something they did not get to finish. Every parent who planted things they won't see grow. Every person who handed something off before the end and wondered if it was enough. The work does not stop when you do. God finishes what He starts. Sometimes through you, sometimes through whoever comes next. Moses saw the land from the mountain. Then God took him home.